This episode is about the 7th season of the Wilderness Solo Champion series. Perhaps you haven't heard of the name Roland, but students who have taken on the challenge of shooting a bull alone must be no stranger to it, especially when he held a small knife and charged straight at 900. The famous scene of Gene shooting the ox is sure to leave you in awe, just based on this most genuine battle. Let Roland win the wilderness completely. The title of the strongest war god living alone. Next, I will spend 40 minutes, a detailed 20,000-word explanation for you. How did Roland get into the Arctic Circle? Get through 100 days alone. The entire process of winning $1 million. On the first day of landing, Roland had already set a goal of aiming for $1 million. That is the first urgent problem that needs to be solved. It must be one that enables oneself to. A shelter where one has resided for over 100 days. Considering the Arctic Circle's winter of 12, the temperature in the month is over 40 degrees below zero. So he chose the one with the greatest construction difficulty, the most labor-intensive approach. So when Roland lifted this 180, when weighing the long-dormant huge rock, it means the most in the history of living alone in the wilderness. A hardcore sanctuary is about to emerge. He deliberately chose these huge stones to build a stone house. The core reason lies in the fact that the stone walls possess the characteristics of heat absorption and long-term storage. When the outside temperature drops, the heat stored in the stone will be released slowly, provide a certain amount of heat for the interior. This way, the indoor temperature can be kept relatively stable. Moreover, the heat preservation effect can last for several days. This feature is completely incomparable to that of wooden houses. Imagine, when the cold winter comes, it was snowing heavily outside the house. The room was as warm as spring. You are sipping warm tea that warms your stomach, while enjoying the charred and fragrant grilled steak. This feeling is just so cool. But on the premise of enjoying, it also comes at a huge cost. If you're not careful for a moment, it's extremely likely one might be injured by being hit and forcibly persuaded to leave, even resulting in lifelong disability. However, Roland, as an ultimate wilderness machine, even though there are numerous difficulties, nothing could stop his longing for victory. After an afternoon of intense work, the framework of the stone house also began to take shape. Such a rough style is also highly consistent with Roland's usual image of being bold and unrestrained, in addition to building safe and warm shelters. Adequate food supply is also a key task at present. Although Roland has not captured any protein so far, he won't let go of any edible berry resources either. He plans to store the collected berries in the tree trunks, make use of the natural environment to air dry and dehydrate it. The water content of dehydrated berries is significantly reduced. It can extend the shelf life by more than a month. It can not only be used as emergency food, it can also provide a certain amount of sugar. Even if large prey cannot be obtained in this way, at least one can rely on these berries to survive for several days. The berries collected this time include a total of 3 varieties. They are cranberry and blueberry respectively, and the relatively rare sorghum berries. Among them, sorghum berries have certain medicinal value. It has the effect of clearing heat and reducing internal heat, provide additional protection for Roland's health in the wilderness. Just when I thought Roland's start had gone quite smoothly, but compared with other contestants, Roland is merely a picking. Berries are just vegetables and chickens that eat ants. Sean was in the first few hours of the first day. He successfully hunted down a porcupine. Pay attention to the prompts given by the program team. All hunting activities must be observed. Local and indigenous jurisdiction regulations and rules. This means that there are certain protected animals involved in the hunting this season. This is also for Roland in the future. The omission of a hunting segment foreshadowed the situation. Sean successfully started the hunt and obtained over 10 pounds of protein. This porcupine laid a solid foundation for Sean's start, except for Sean, who was well-fed and well-drunk. Mark was so caught that his hands were weak. He caught 2 trout weighing over 10 pounds each at one time. There are so many fish that we definitely can't finish them all at once. Mark set up a stone oven in the shelter. Start making smoked fish meat for preservation. In contrast to Roland's collection and preservation of berries, Roland is still too weak. If you think Mark only catches fish, then you are wrong. While waiting for the grilled fish, he caught a squirrel again. Amos Fishing has also borne fruit, a 20-pound salmon. It's enough for him to have a comfortable start to this season. Joe also caught a squirrel at the beginning of the game. After watching the opening moves of other players, would you still think that Roland's start was smooth? It has to be said that living alone in the wilderness is 7th. The contestants of season are really terrifyingly strong. Time flies. It's already the 7th day. After 2 days of meticulous craftsmanship, the most important smoke exhaust system of the stone house has also been settled. In this way, even in the coldest winter, the bonfire inside the house burns nonstop for 24 hours. There's no need to worry about carbon monoxide poisoning either. After the chimney was completed, the construction of the shelter has officially entered its 2nd stage. In order to match the scale of this huge stone house, Roland deliberately chose logs with a diameter of about 20 centimeters. This makes the weight of a single black spruce easily exceed 90 kilograms. I thought it was a huge stone house built by Roland. It has already broken the upper limit of the shelter that the program team has ever set. I have now finished watching all 12 episodes of the series. I never thought that cutting a piece of wood would create something unparalleled. It seems that the value of Roland is still constantly increasing. However, every time Roland moved this huge log, all of them will consume all their strength. Perhaps among these contestants, perhaps only the wilderness machine Roland could have such physical strength. It is estimated the 90-kilogram grade logs needed to build the entire stone house. At least 10 should be collected. Compare with others to complete the survival challenge. A player whose core goal is to win the prize money. Roland's construction philosophy. I am more inclined to live in the Arctic Circle environment for a long time. Its standards for shelters. It is more in line with the actual needs of stable living. However, this project consumes too much physical strength. The remaining work was scheduled to continue the next day, although I didn't get enough food during these 14 days. But with the trace amount of carbohydrates brought by the willow root and one's own strong and powerful body, the construction progress of the stone house has not been affected. At present, the four walls have reached the ideal height. The remaining task is to cap the roof of the house, the thick round log that serves as a load-bearing pillar in the eyes of other contestants. In Roland's hands, it could only be used as a partition for the roof. The requirements for the structural strength of the shelter are thus evident. However, such extremely intense labor. A rough estimate suggests that it consumes 500 calories per hour. This is equivalent to the calories contained in 2 medium-sized apples. It can be imagined what a terrifying existence his power is. Roland was well aware that when the cold winter came, how important is a safe and warm residence. Therefore, even if no food was obtained in the early stage, it still needs to be developed into the most hardcore sanctuary in the Arctic Circle. As the last topping-off pole fell, this fortress-level shelter has been officially completed, and such a degree of firmness. Even if black bears are dancing on it, they can handle it with ease. The subsequent detailed handling of the roof is relatively simple. Just lay the moss and cover it with a tarpaulin to complete it. The gap reserved on one side is for the chimney. It seems Roland really intends to live here for a long time. It looks more like a home, although Roland appeared impregnable in front of the camera. But he's also been very distressed during this period. At present, the food for cold resistance and protection has been solved, but the only large animal that he was constantly thinking about. In this 300-moo forest, I just couldn't see one end. I was extremely annoyed by the location arranged by the program team. In the past 2.5 weeks, he has no source of protein. There was no shortage of people who survived by eating willow roots. Willow root is a kind of root herb rich in starch. It can have the effect of treating internal heat, relieving pain and fever. It also plays a certain role in the treatment of inflammation. Collect some in advance and store them in the gaps beside the food to deal with possible food shortages that may arise in the future. In order to break this deadlock as soon as possible, he used the gill net that had not caught any fish in the past 10 days or so. Move to deeper waters. Try your luck. After resetting the barbed wire, Roland immediately headed for the lasso trap he had set earlier. The Air Force's long-standing trap has finally caught its prey. Today is no longer a state of emptiness. Facing this scarce and long-awaited protein, Roland couldn't wait to demonstrate what it meant to eat raw meat and drink blood. This rough way of eating, guys, you mustn't follow suit, because it directly consumes wild animals. It is highly likely to be infected with a virus. It is highly not recommended to follow suit. And Roland did so. It's because I have had this habit since I became an adult. A certain degree of antibodies has already been produced in his body and have the ability to tolerate for the intestines that other contestants don't like to eat. Roland, whose food is scarce at present, is planned to be washed and cooked for consumption. But when he peeled off the squirrel's skin, it was found that the skin inside his back had turned pale white. The skin on the abdomen remains blue. This indicates that the cold winter is approaching. It means leaving Roland to perfect the shelter, and the time to stock up on more food is very limited. As the Arctic sunset of the 22nd day was about to set, Roland's barbed net finally reaped a long-awaited harvest. At this moment, Roland, who had been in a state of energy exhaustion for a long time, only physically can one truly achieve redemption. We have been watching for 100 days. A trout weighing 8 pounds can provide up to 5 kilocalories at most. It's far from meeting the demands of an ultimate wilderness machine, and Roland is in the Arctic Circle. A day's basal metabolism and labor. All of them require about 3 kilocalories of calories. These two fish can only meet Roland's consumption for about 3 days at most, so we must still find ways to continue solving the food problem. However, when he got ashore, he suddenly stopped. I caught sight of the distance by accident. It seems that something is staring at me. To confirm the identity of the target, Roland slowly adjusted the focal length of the lens to zoom in and observe. Good grief. It turned out to be a local resident black bear. This was Roland's first time in this 300-acre forest, the first large animal I saw. At this moment, both sides kept their eyes on each other. Adopt a static and vigilant posture. Perhaps the black bear is curious. The guy opposite should be very delicious. From the perspective of animal behavior, black bears usually respond to unfamiliar creatures. First, judge the degree of danger through observation. His gaze behavior is an assessment of Roland, whether the body shape and movements pose a danger. However, just as he was assessing the risks, Roland here, however, came up with the idea of a barbecue feast. The key point is that its fur can also be used for keeping warm, considering that the current position is downwind of the black bear. This means black bears can clearly perceive their scent through their sense of smell. If any aggressive movements are made at this time, it is very likely to trigger the black bear's emergency response of fleeing, so as to scare it away. Judgments based on the surrounding environment and animal behavior. Roland decided to go around the woods from the side, try to intercept and ambush the black bear. For Roland, the difficulty of this operation far exceeds that of previous ones. The adult weight of a black bear, it can reach 100 to 200 kilograms, and the bite force reaches a terrifying 360 kilograms. The running speed can reach up to 56 kilometers per hour simultaneously. This is both a confrontation of strength and skill. It is also the ultimate test of his wilderness survival experience, despite breathing rapidly and feeling scared inside. But $1 million. It still gave him the courage to go forward and hunt down. But unfortunately, limited by the initial observation point. There's a certain distance from black bears. When he made a detour to the location where he had previously found the black bear, I looked around but still couldn't see the big black bear. And at this point, what is even more crucial is the position where Roland is standing now. I could actually smell it from my own camp. The smell of fish and smoke wafting from inside, because the olfactory cells of black bears can reach over 1 billion. It is approximately 500 human olfactory cells, 2,100 times that of 10,000. It can easily perceive food within a range of 5 kilometers. The smell, coupled with its diffusion through air currents, this has become the core incentive that attracts black bears to approach. It seems that there will be a harsh winter of resource scarcity in the future. It's inevitable to be frequently visited by neighbors. It also adds a lot of risks to the 100-day survival challenge. Since the failure of the last bear catch operation, today, the second net gave him another lesson. Perhaps this is my punishment, because I once made a solemn oath. Now I'm going up there to dig the tree roots. I might also pick some berries. Now I can only dig up some tree roots and berries to satisfy my hunger. More than 20 days have passed since the start of the game. Roland still hasn't solved the problem of food and clothing. So hungry that I picked berries and dug up grass roots. But Joe next door was already catching fish so hard that he couldn't stop. There's so much fish that I can't finish it all. A 3-meter-high aerial platform was specially built. It is used to store the excess fish. Mark is even more exaggerated. Almost every day, I make smoked fish meat in the shelter. At this time, there were already dozens of pounds of fish and meat hanging in the shelter. There are no seats left in the shelter. They set up another oven outside and continued roasting. Some people are good at catching fish. Some people are also good at hunting. The female athlete Kelly has gone hunting. A porcupine weighing 30 pounds. The fur of porcupines can keep them warm. Pork has a relatively high fat content. The energy of a 30-pound porcupine is far more than the energy provided by 4 trout weighing over 10 pounds. In addition, Kelly's hunting trap also caught a rabbit. Joe also caught a rabbit. Rabbit fur is extremely precious in the cold winter. He caught 2 rabbits at one time. Eats stewed meat every day. He can also eat it continuously for a week. The rabbit, tired of eating, went fishing again. Unexpectedly, he caught a 30-pound giant salmon. It made him burst into tears in an instant. Look at this fish. Oh yes, look at this trout. This is a fat trout. The contestants in the 7th season of Living Alone in the Wilderness are truly terrifyingly strong. Anyone you randomly pick up will be the champion of another season. The gears of Roland's fate also began to turn. But when he finished digging the berries and was about to return, a musk ox appeared behind a ridge. There's always a way out for people facing such an alluring super protein. At this moment, the awakening power in Roland's heart suddenly awakened. Let him exert all the strength he can in this life. At this moment, they all transformed into divine swords and poured down upon him. It also officially kicked off the curtain of this epic battle. We hit it. We just hit that musk bull. At this moment, Nyo felt a slight pain in his bottom. Hurry down the hillside. Find a place to hide. Roland followed closely behind, maintaining a certain safe distance. I'm both worried that he might run away, and I'm afraid he'll fight back, because launching an attack at this time, it is highly likely to encounter strong resistance from shooting oxen. The safest strategy is still to keep a safe distance. Wait for the opportunity to attack. Roland followed the shooting bull to the downhill where he was resting. I had intended to shoot another arrow at close range, but at this moment, the arrow in his hand was very inappropriately gone. We can only continue to wait patiently for the right opportunity to attack. However, the musk ox is a cold-resistant animal unique to the Arctic Circle. The thickness of its skin can reach 1 to 2 centimeters. In addition, there is the physiological structure of a relatively thick subcutaneous fat layer. This leads to a slower rate of blood loss from a wound. This made Roland have to keep waiting. It took more than 5 hours before it finally lost too much blood, a state of physical exhaustion. At this moment, Roland saw that musk ox could no longer stand. Moreover, the sky was gradually darkening. He was ready to take out a knife and engage in a close combat. After all, it's all the things one desires. All of them were achieved through striving. The tenacious musk ox was also very eager to make a vigorous resistance. It may be limited by the sluggishness caused by the previous injury, and it has the characteristics of being large in size and having poor flexibility. It was right in front of Roland, who was holding a knife in his hand, like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered, with Roland's 2 crucial and fatal attacks. Plus, from the very beginning of the injury, to a physical torment lasting up to 6 hours. The 900-pound musk ox finally fell down. Oh my goodness, I just stabbed this musk ox to death. At this very moment, all I want to say is that through 100 battles in the yellow sand, I have worn through the golden armor. I won't return until I've conquered Lulon. After more than 30 days of arduous struggle, Lulon finally got the result of her persistent efforts. At this moment, I admit, you are more handsome than any of your brothers who have just taken a bath in front of the screen. After the excited joy, the main task is to prevent the beef from rotting. Roland decided to take out the internal organs first, because of the bacterial reproduction rate of internal organs. It is 3 to 5 times the size of muscle tissue, and this operation can also quickly lower the overall temperature, reduce the problem of rapid bacterial growth, to buy time for the subsequent processing and storage of meat. During the decomposition process, I had some beef heart first to regain my strength. It can also supplement a certain amount of trace iron and protein at the same time. Every 100 grams of beef heart contains 15, up to 18 grams of protein, and 7 to 9 milligrams of heme iron, a body that is rapidly depleting its energy. Supplement nutrition to relieve physical exertion, but it is particularly necessary to note that this way of eating internal organs raw. Brothers in front of the screen, please don't blindly follow the trend. It is very likely to be triggered by ordinary people eating raw food poisoning, or parasitic infection. Roland has had this habit for many years, so a certain degree of specific antibodies was produced in the body. However, at night in the Arctic Circle is always accompanied by unknown risks. For personal safety considerations, Roland had to put aside such delicious food for the time being, give priority to packing some supplies, and return to the camp, because the camp is about 2.5 kilometers away from here, far greater than last season's Jordan, and the camp is only 900 meters away. He once adopted the strategy of disassembling moose all night long. However, Roland did not choose this approach this time. The core reason lies in its location. The ecological environment of the region is more dangerous. This area has long been occupied. Nocturnal predators, such as black bears and wolverines. They are all-night killers that are highly active at night. Roland didn't want to keep dozens of pounds of beef and move it all night long, and thus risking one's life. Therefore, he preferred to choose the internal organs with a higher fat content, put in a raincoat, and carry it back to the camp. Nearly 100 grams of visceral fat. It can provide 900 calories. It's enough to enjoy a luxurious wilderness feast tonight. Most of the rest can only be dealt with the next day. Hopefully, the predator won't let the musk ox squander it all tonight. Otherwise, the brothers in front of the screen will tell you what will be the consequence of annoying Roland. On the 29th warm night in the Arctic, it was the most comfortable sleep Roland had ever had. The ultimate relaxation allowed him to sleep soundly. I didn't get up until after 11 a.m. After enjoying a delicious and nutritious breakfast at the state banquet, Roland shouldered his bow and arrow again. Start moving the beef immediately. He knew that there might be bears and wolverines fighting over the food. Moreover, black bears have an extremely acute sense of smell. It is 2,100 times that of human beings. The strongest smell can be detected as far as 10 kilometers away. Beef with a bloody smell is highly likely to attract predators to gather. Fortunately, no animal ambushes were encountered on the way. After arriving at the temporary storage site of the musk ox, it was discovered most of the core meat is still well preserved. Only a little of the tripe piled up on the stone beside was stolen and eaten. But just as Roland was about to set about, he held his bow and arrow carefully, staring straight ahead. it turned out to be just the sound of the wind blowing through the leaves. Fortunately, it turned out to be a false alarm. I thought some other animal had come to deliver supplies again. However, this also sets the stage for the subsequent decomposition process. It added a few more points of danger. Roland must always remain highly vigilant. He intends to peel off the outer skin first. Start with 2 beef legs. From a nutritional perspective, the protein content of beef leg meat accounts for approximately 20%, and it contains all 8 essential amino acids for the human body. At the same time, its protein digestion and absorption rate can reach over 90%. It can effectively promote muscle growth and repair. It is especially suitable for children who are doing fitness exercises and people recovering after surgery. As a professional hunting guide, Roland has dealt with many large animals throughout his life. Therefore, for him, the matter of dissection, it's just like having hands is enough. But while concentrating on the decomposition, one still needs to be vigilant about the surrounding environment. Prevent sneak attacks from predators. In this top-quality tenderloin, it will be the best feedback for a hard day's work. After 3 hours of hard work, the bloody smell of beef attracted a gathering of crows. And the visit of the crow, it often becomes a signal for other predators to track their food. Therefore, Roland must speed up the processing progress. But today I want to get all this meat. It is impossible to bring it back to the shelter, as an autopsy has just been conducted here to prevent wild animals from gnawing on the remaining beef. Roland had no choice but to start with the most. The value position has shifted to the top of the mountain. Then lay a layer of branches on top for camouflage. Cover it with a whole piece of cowhide. And in the original place, only the head and belly of the shooting ox were left. Attract predators with a sense of these 2 parts. Thus, most of the core beef can be preserved. After all, the smell of blood at the first scene was too intense. At this time, the Arctic Circle is covered with snowflakes. However, Roland's room was as warm as spring, plus a plate of vomiting beef heart in hand. This is Roland's most comfortable state at this moment. Take a bite of the delicious food. I believe there is nothing more wonderful in the world than this moment. After enjoying this high-protein feast, the transportation of beef still needs to continue. Although the snow is falling from the uninhabited land, it covers the entire land, but this still cannot be stopped. The steps he took to win $1 million. However, when he found that the snow was covered with messy footprints, a sense of foreboding instantly tightened the heartstrings. When he arrived at the scene with a bow and arrow in hand, the practice of shooting a bull's head was indeed desecrated by poachers, and the beef tongue that was both nutritious and delicious vanished as well, despite some losses. But fortunately, the real place where the meat was hidden was not discovered. After this painful lesson, Roland realized that the speed of transporting the beef needed to be accelerated. Avoid further escalation of losses. However, walking in the weather of wind and snow, each time, they can only carry a few dozen pounds of beef back to the camp, and it's a distance of 2.5 kilometers. A maximum of 3 trips of transportation can be completed in a day, hopefully in the coming days. This meat won't be lost too severely. Perhaps for Roland at the moment, too much meat should also be a kind of trouble, right? When there is an abundance of food, unconsciously, it's already the 35th day. For Roland, these days have definitely been the most enjoyable time spent in the Arctic. However, at temperatures below zero, walk 2.5 kilometers along the mountain path to carry the beef back. This has also become the most arduous thing at present, when the entire land is covered with pure white snow. Let Roland take every step. All of them were especially cautious, but at the same time, it can also be discovered more easily. An animal that leaves footprints on the ground. Look at the continuity of the direction in which this footprint moves forward, and the depth analysis left by the trampling. It is highly likely to be a black bear that had previously coveted beef, and it's highly likely that it's nearby and hasn't gone far yet. This time, the beef has been completely targeted by black bears. Just at this moment, the subsequent content, neither the production team nor Roland himself has given an explanation. What exactly happened? We're not quite sure either. Anyway, in Roland's hand, it was suddenly an extra pair of plush gloves to protect against the cold winter. It might be due to the local protection policies. Roland is getting this black one. The scene of the plush gloves was not broadcast. When he took out this pair of black plush gloves, I knew Roland was hunting. It's not just a musk ox. Perhaps there was also that big fellow who stole his ox tongue. That's a bear. I want to fight you. No matter what we do, we won't let the stinky bear go. Steal my meat from my front yard. Roland, we're leaving this episode. See the bear in the distance. It might be that bear. You know, it has been attacking all the time. Your musk ox. How rare is it to see bears in winter? The winter bear is a bit strange. This will make them even more unpredictable, and it might be even more dangerous. We saw that bear carry away your fish, so you decided to change the script and actually hunt down the animal. After a life-and-death battle, this moment is just right. Let's have a genuine wild barbecue. That's simply a feast. And the musk ox's eggs. This is the best source of energy. It not only contains rich protein, potassium, and fat. The key point lies in such high consumption. During the days of low-intake wilderness survival, this is definitely the top quality tonic of the best choice. Pair it with a half-pound charcoal-grilled, original-cut beef tenderloin. Finish this meal. Roland instantly felt as if he had returned to the age of 18. My old back, which had been sore for many years, no longer aches. After having a full meal and drink, lean back on the bed. At this very moment, there is nothing more pleasant in the world than this. After providing the stomach with abundant energy, Roland should also take good care of himself. He came out carrying a leftover cow brain. Prepare for the secondary development of resources. Because the brain of a cow contains a kind of lecithin fat, it is a kind of natural leather softener, so apply it to the surface of the leather gloves. It can enhance the flexibility and durability of gloves, and when applied to the skin, it can also be used as a moisturizer. Frost can reduce water evaporation and low-temperature stimulation in winter, and it also has the effect of moisturizing and preventing freezing. The key point is still that it is all natural and free of additives. This operation, it also reflects the core rule of survival in the Arctic Circle for 100 days. Let go of the usage bias in traditional concepts. Maximize the utilization of every part of the prey. Survival is the primary prerequisite for achieving the goal. After all, $1 million is enough to change a person's second half of life. Considering the environment of the Arctic Circle, predators such as black bears and wolverines are frequently active. Roland had to protect his beef, which was as precious as gold. He doesn't want to waste time on these poachers. So, it was decided to build a sturdy solid wood meat storage box. Roland, who usually has a bold and unrestrained style, he deliberately chose a diameter of 15. Build it with logs larger than 1 centimeter. Like ordinary small animals, they want to destroy and feed. That's simply nonsense. The bottom of the rotten meat box is based with spruce branches. This way, it can not only keep things fresh, and it can also block all reptiles. Avoid contaminating the meat, especially be on guard against wolverines. Scientific research indicates it can sense being buried about 6 meters thick, the smell of food under the snow. Therefore, the sealing and sturdiness of the meat storage box need to be strengthened as a priority. In daily life, Roland was originally a professional lumberjack. The use and cutting of wood, it has long reached an extremely high level of attainment. So this time, the meat storage box is still built with mortise and tenon structure. The stable splicing is achieved through the interlocking of concave and convex layers between the woods. In a low-temperature environment, it is more stable than traditional nail fixation. It is also the best construction technique for outdoor survival. After setting the height to the appropriate position, then, at the 4 corners of the freezer, drive each pair of wooden stakes in the ground. Moreover, steel wires were deliberately used to tighten the wooden stakes. Make sure that each diagonal will not be given by large animals. After 2.5 hours of hustle and bustle, a natural refrigerator as solid as a rock is done. Finally, Roland moved all the meat that he wouldn't eat in the short term over. The meat is separated from each other by spruce branches. The purpose is to prevent heavy snow from freezing them together. Finally, make a lid for the refrigerator and lock it. Don't say that wolverines and black bears give you a headache. Even Roland herself had to spend half a day preparing to eat it. It's not just Roland who stores meat in this way. For example, Joe took the extra fish meat, stored on a platform 3 meters high. But this does not prevent the wolverine from stealing the food. He had to take all the fish down, store it in a shelter. The big fisherman Mark caught another fox in his trap. He has a lot of food now. Perhaps it's because life has been too comfortable. Mark has no intention of killing this fox. Instead, release it back into nature. He might have let go of more than just a fox. It could also be a reward worth millions of dollars. When he was checking the second trap, but they were lucky enough to catch a rabbit. Mark's good luck goes far beyond this. When he was inspecting the barb net, the gill net has caught another big fish. I have never seen such a lucky player as Mark. Perhaps at this moment, Mark really felt that he was terrifyingly strong. There's definitely more meat than enough to finish. So Joe wanted to be in the shelter. Store your extra meat in the corner. He dug a hole in the ground, then separate the ground with fir branches. Lay another layer of ice and snow on top. A simple wilderness version of the refrigerator is done. Store in a shelter. It can effectively prevent animals from stealing food. And there's Kelly, the butcher of the wilderness. She set up many hunting traps, eating grilled meat every day by relying on traps. 4 hares were harvested in just 1 day. Kelly can be called a hare harvester. There is simply too much meat to finish. Time flies. It has been 45 days. Although holding several hundred pounds of wild beef in hand, there are still many challenges to achieving the 100-day survival goal. So at this point, he needed to scrape as much of the musk ox as possible. All those precious fats comparable to gold, and the lower lip of the musk ox's face, and the fat inside the ears. It should be able to support the demand for about 2 days. There's also a layer between the cartilage and the flesh. It's almost enough to meet my energy consumption for 2 days. And the reason why Roland went to great lengths to get fat, that is because when the human body senses that the external temperature is too low, it will break down the fat in the body, generate energy to maintain core body temperature. Part of this energy is used to maintain basal metabolism. Another part is directly converted into heat, help the body resist low temperatures. So keep consuming enough fat in the wild. Only in this way can we better cope with the extreme challenges in winter. Roland is in real life the identity of an Alaska wilderness guide. This thus prompted him to become part of this game, the contestant with the strongest comprehensive ability in the competition. But he expressed regret. Not born in the ancient tribal era, perhaps one can become a valiant warrior renowned far and wide. This sentiment not only reflects his love for survival in the wilderness, it also implies professional experience, resonance with the primitive wisdom of survival. I wonder if you have noticed a detail. With an adequate supply of food, a wall of bummadindung of dead wood was piled up at the entrance of the Lorana stone house. The reserves are sufficient to meet the combustion demand for 1 month. This detail not only reflects his awe of the unknown risks in nature, it further highlights the survival awareness of being vigilant even in times of peace. It laid the foundation for the even more severe winter that followed, when the sun rises on the 46th day, when reflected on this extremely cold land. A long-term solitary life in the wilderness, it made Roland feel a little bored. I had no choice but to talk to the crow about life. Roland had a special fondness for crows, because the ratio of brain volume to body weight of corvids is close to 0. The long category makes them have a very high IQ. When facing land threats, it will actively emit low-frequency sounds. It can make it easy for both humans and animals. Anticipate potential threats around in advance. Just for this point, this can reduce the probability of animals being preyed upon. After opening up your heart for a while, Roland once again came to the Lake of Rage, which he both loved and hated. However, there are rocks on the slope close to 55 degrees along the shore. Let him cast the gill net every time. All of them were particularly frightened. Seeing the exceptionally gentle lake's surface today reignite Roland's desire to fish once again. He took that familiar barb net. It was placed at the same spot that brought him the 2 turning point fish. I hope it will be restocked again. It can still bring new hope. However, Roland had just made a wish. I never expected it to come true right away. On a half slope over 100 meters away from the opposite side, there was actually a large group of shooting bulls active. Such a spectacular scene of a beef feast, even for the experienced Roland. It is also extremely rare. If we get involved a few more times, then what else do the other players play? Just watch Roland survive alone in the wilderness, and that's it. But Roland wasn't hungry enough to be alone yet. The extent to which one person single-handedly shoots a herd of cattle. Based on his experience and risk assessment, he took on the musk bull herd alone. There are 2 high-risk outcomes. Either be trampled by the shooting herd in a frenzy. Either they are frightened and flee in a panic. More importantly, the fleeing musk ox. It is very likely to mistakenly enter the area of other players. This not only fails to bring benefits to oneself, instead, it even increases the difficulty of one's own survival. So Roland no longer blindly pursued short-term benefits. Instead, it avoids risks from the perspective of long-term survival. After all, my own savings are still enough to last for a while. It has to be said, Roland's cautious attitude. It's as if Yangwa really had a knack for martial arts. The next morning, Roland couldn't wait to check the secondary net, because the wild feast had already been planned in my heart. Fish head soup serves as an appetizer. Grilled beef tenderloin with trout sashimi is served as the main course. The dessert after the meal was crispy fried fish tails. To be able to enjoy such a luxurious cuisine in the Arctic, Roland also set the precedent of being the first to seek a deep leave. I just want to ask Roland, have you forgotten? I also hit a lot of blueberry berries myself. Although the weather with wind and snow is very bad, but still couldn't stop Roland's profound steps. Although he walked especially carefully with a cane, but I still tripped over nature. Fortunately, it didn't hit the back of the head. Otherwise, I'm really afraid of falling here and not coming. It's just that my right knee feels a little painful. It should not affect the following matches. After getting up again, head straight to the shore to check the gill net you've been longing for. But that barb net, it has been blown off the shore by the wind and waves. This scene of helplessly watching one's beloved baby lose. Roland was so angry that he blurted out his native language on the spot. I greeted the weather and Danu Lake together more than 10 times. But after venting, we still have to find a way to get the barb net back. After all, this was the only tool for him to obtain the pleasure of revelry. The next day, Roland found a 6-meter-long tree trunk. Taking the risk of possibly falling into the icy lake water, he managed to rescue the barb net from the lake water. Fortunately, nothing unexpected happened. That's too dangerous. When Roland's survival challenge advanced to day 51, the daily meat processing and camp maintenance have come to a temporary halt. He decided to make use of his spare time, complete something that has been planned for a long time. Roland had always been puzzled before. Why does a squirrel stay so frequently, unwilling to leave the tree beside the food? It was not until today that I had the time to learn the truth. It turned out that the squirrel was in the tree. A large amount of mushrooms have been stored for the winter. There's no reason to miss out on such a good thing that comes right to your door. Roland didn't hesitate for a moment. He directly swung the axe and cut down the tree to snatch the mushrooms. Because we are going to have a meal tonight. The beef stewed with tomatoes and mushrooms that I have been longing for. A long-term monotonous diet. It has already caused him to experience taste fatigue. So it's necessary to change the taste to make some adjustments. Vitamins lacking in winter. It's just right to supplement from mushrooms. Research shows squirrels are in hibernation. Weight usually drops by about 1/3. So it needs to store enough food to sustain its life. Good grief, Roland, you're full. Have you ever considered the feelings of the little squirrel? How can you make people celebrate the new year like this? Immediately after, Roland took out that unknown one. How many times has the musk cow scalp been scoured? Sew it up with loose rope to make a backpack. Besides being able to hold small mushrooms now, it can still be taken back as a very memorable collectible. If squirrels could talk, then it will surely send a long string of telegrams to bless Roland. As winter deepens, the low temperatures in the Arctic Circle are becoming increasingly severe. At this moment, the temperature outside the house dropped to -15 degrees, and a thick layer of frost formed inside the food. This means that the heat inside the room is being lost at an accelerating rate. Want to keep warm all the time. The fire must be kept burning for 24 hours to counteract the heat loss caused by the temperature difference between indoors and outdoors. At the same time, all the snow outside the house has to be piled up on the outer wall. And Roland operated in this way. It's because it just fell into the snow that hasn't been compacted yet. Generally, 95% of the space is occupied by air, and air is a poor conductor of heat. As is well known, heat is conducted very slowly in the air. When snow covers the surface of an object, these air trapped in the snow. It's just like a thick air blanket. And this layer of insulation, it can effectively prevent the heat inside food from being conducted to the outside. At the same time, it also prevents cold air from the outside from seeping into the room. Thus, it can play a more excellent role in heat insulation and preservation. Roland actively generates heat in this way, a dual high-efficiency insulation system with passive insulation. There is no doubt that it is for an even more severe winter to come. A solid foundation has been laid. As the temperature in winter keeps dropping, every contestant attaches great importance to keeping warm in the shelter. For example, Amos made a big fire in the shelter to keep warm. He overlooked a safety point when building the fireplace. This leads to the situation when making a fire in the shelter. Set the walls of the wooden house on fire. Although Amos suppressed the fire at the first moment, but the climate is dry in winter. This caused the fire to burn extremely fiercely. In the end, the fire got out of control. Amos, in order to minimize the losses, take out everything. He was well aware that this sanctuary was beyond redemption. The shelter was burning with a large amount of smoke. In the end, Amos withdrew from the competition because his shelter was burned down. But before withdrawing, Amos lives alone in the wilderness. The seasoned champion lit up the fireworks in advance. He contributed some program effects to the production team. Thank you, Amos, for your selfless dedication. Roland on the 66th day. I didn't start a food live stream as usual. Instead, a rare solo Rolling Stones concert was held. I'll accept your 8 characters. It's been a long time since I felt this great. Even though there is now an abundance of food, there is no fat to withstand the severe cold of the Arctic. It won't work either. So this thorny problem, let Roland take the bow and arrow again. Set foot on this 300 mu white land to actively search. The baby who can keep him going until the 100th day. But for Roland, those animals with high risks, it's no longer my goal. And that kind of inability to resist, and under one's own weight, prey that can be easily subdued is the top choice. Because there are still over 100 pounds of beef in his outdoor freezer, and the berries and willow roots hidden in the food, to keep oneself going until the 100th day. So at this moment, the little porcupine is stealing food in the berry field. So it went with the flow and became his next meal. Take this black stick down. This porcupine meal of berries became his last dinner party. Perhaps he will never figure it out until his death. Why can't both black bears and wolverines do anything to themselves? But he was subdued by a single move from this 2-legged beast from another place. Then let me tell you, because the legs of porcupines are too short. It can only run 3 kilometers per hour. Force them to protect themselves with their thorny feathers. And these spikes also have tiny barbs. Once it gets stuck in the skin, it is very difficult to pull out, although it can resist being bitten by other animals. But this defense mechanism is encountering. Strong external forces won't work. To prevent porcupine quills from pricking your hand, Roland dragged it back to the camp with a rope. This was the first time Roland had hunted porcupines, but Kelly was already a frequent hunter of porcupines. Kelly has hunted 3 porcupines this season. Imagine, it was snowing heavily outside, but you were eating roast pork in the shelter. I'd be willing to marry 10 wives in this scene. The shelter was covered with pork legs. Kelly's hunting scenes are no worse than Roland's hunting of musk oxen. Although Kelly already has a large reserve of meat, but she still chose ice fishing. It doesn't matter if you don't fish. I caught a big fish again. Look at these big trout weighing over 10 pounds. It can provide food support for the contestants for 3 days. The porcupine meat hasn't been finished yet. I've accumulated another pile of fish and meat all over the ground. She has no worries about food and drink. They began to walk the runway on the snow. This rabbit sweater is enough to prove her strength. It has to be said that the contestants of this season are truly terrifyingly strong. Just taking one out alone could make it the season champion of any other version. But Kelly only made a rabbit top to keep warm. Foot care was neglected. In the end, she was forced to withdraw from the competition because her feet were frostbitten. If Kelly makes a pair of rabbit socks, wouldn't this encounter be avoided? Kelly's withdrawal from the competition doesn't mean that Roland won the championship with skills. The rule for this season is that players are required. You can only get the reward after surviving for 100 days. Roland's mission still has a long way to go. In the blink of an eye, Roland spent 72 days in the Arctic. It so happens that today is also Thanksgiving Day in the United States on November 27th. And the little porcupine caught a few days ago, it just made up for the absence of having turkey today. At the same time, we are grateful for the gifts of nature and so many days of taking care of myself. And the origin of eating turkey on this day, it is to express gratitude to the Indians for the year 1620, the earliest European immigrants to board the Mayflower. Help arriving in Plymouth, Massachusetts, North America. Teach them methods to identify edible wild vegetable nuts. Wait a moment. Help immigrants master the survival rules of the North American continent. Wait until the autumn of 1621. The Puritans reaped their first harvest to express gratitude for the help of the Indians. At the same time, I'm also grateful for God's favor. They invited Massasoit, and 90 Native Americans celebrated the harvest together. This 3-day grand feast, it is regarded as the first Thanksgiving. Back to the screen, Roland treated it by roasting it over a fire. Porcupines can shed their hair more quickly without pricking your hands. Secondly, it can also remove all the fat from porcupines. Preserve it to the greatest extent and completely. There's no need to use a knife to do it bit by bit. Scrape off the fat adhering to the epidermis. This way of handling things not only seems experienced and sophisticated, and it is also very much in line with its image of being bold and unrestrained. Many early Native American tribes dealt with it in this way. If the brothers usually survive in the wild, and if you accidentally catch a small animal, why not give this method a try? Taste the most original flavor. After 2.5 hours of meticulous baking, the fattest and most delicious part of the pig must be the hind leg. This bite really makes one's imagination run wild. The intersection and integration of fat and lean meat, and put the crispy pig skin in your mouth together. In an instant, the most original flavor of the meat explodes in the mouth. The texture is just right, rich but not greasy. It made Roland keep exclaiming in admiration on the spot. This is comparable to that dried beef that has been stored for over a month. It tastes much better, although I no longer have food anxiety problems. But every day, he would come to the irritable lakeside to fetch water. But it became no small trouble for Roland. Water sources that are readily available on a daily basis. At this moment, however, it has become extremely dangerous and fraught with difficulties. The rocks on the shore, which have long been covered with thick ice. Every step Roland took forward was extremely cautious. If one is not careful, one will then fall into that bone-chilling cold 610 in the Great Anger Lake, which is 1 meter deep. You might be curious to see this. Why didn't Roland just take the snow on the spot? It was boiled and then drunk as water. That's because snow is forming and falling. It will absorb a large amount of pollutants, including but not limited to animal feces, insect eggs, and bacteria. Even after boiling, there is still a possibility of triggering acute gastroenteritis. This will thereby trigger diseases such as vomiting and diarrhea, further increase the risk of dehydration and hypothermia. In short, unless it is absolutely necessary, it is highly not recommended to directly melt snow into water when surviving in the wild. But in any case, it must always be kept in mind. The essence of snow is a carrier of pollutants to be treated, rather than water sources that can be drunk directly. When the sundial that was keeping time turned the early morning of the 81st day, to fight against the extremely cold weather, Roland has upgraded his equipment again, deliberately in front of the camera. He took out a pair of gloves that were extremely impressive. Meanwhile, there's also a small gray wolf leather hat and a warm cowhide shoulder bag. There's also a pair of fishing gear inside. After showing off the equipment, Roland is going to take on the challenge. I'm not good ice fishing. I'm afraid that my weight of 200 pounds won't be able to handle the ice surface. I deliberately picked a 30-meter long stick to go ice fishing on the lake surface, in case you accidentally break the ice and fall into the lake on the way back and forth. It is completely possible to use this pole to climb out of the water, not to lose one's life. In this merciless Danu lake, the current temperature has reached -33 degrees. Walking on the lake, a gentle breeze blew. It's like an ice knife scraping the bone. Both the beard and the brim of the hat were covered with a layer of frost. 11 a.m. After safely arriving at the center of the lake, Roland immediately began to dig the ice cave. The lost rope tied to the axe. It is to prevent it from falling into the water. The history of ice fishing. It can be traced back to over 2,000 years ago. At that time, Native Americans would chisel through the ice surface, fish with a harpoon, so as to catch sturgeon, pike, and other fish to make a living. Busy for a moment, a 40-centimeter square ice cave has been completed. In order to prove myself, Roland deliberately used top-quality wild-cut beef as bait. The main thing is that there is no other meat left. I hope the fish won't be ungrateful for such a good thing. However, it seems that today's luck is not so good. 2.5 hours of waiting. The bait is still in perfect condition. It seemed that the sky was getting darker. Think about it and go back. Just go on and have that tasteless wild beef. The lonely and cold night always makes people can't help but daydream. Even Roland, as powerful as an ox, could not avoid it. An 18-hour-long night. It made him start to miss his family involuntarily. Time flies. It was already the morning of the 86th day. Recalling the early days of the competition, Roland prevented himself from not getting food. I deliberately spent a lot of time collecting. 5 full sections of a tree trunk are laden with berries. It was only today that I recalled I still have such a bunch of treasures. I originally intended to take out these berries and enjoy them to my heart's content. By the way, supplement the sugar that is the hardest to obtain at the moment. But when he peeled off the moss used for preservation, good grief, I originally intended to take some vitamins as a snack to relieve the greasiness. Now everything has shrunk and become moldy, because Roland put 5 sections of the tree trunk stack up to the ceiling position of the food. Plus, the bonfire in the room never goes out for 24 hours. This causes the indoor air temperature to rise. It accelerated the moldy and deteriorating of these precious berries. There's no choice but to find another way now. It's snowing heavily now. How could there be berries to gather? So it reminded him of the beef flavor he had cherished. The shooting cow is a herbivorous mammal. In summer, it is mainly covered with sandgrass moss. It feeds on broadleaf plants and so on. These plants are rich in water and nutrients. It can meet the needs of shooting cattle in summer, the need for growth and reproduction, and the undigested weeds in the stomach. At this moment, it was regarded as a treasure by Roland. These things inside are commonly known as cattle turtles, also known as bai chow tang. It is regarded as a commodity for entertaining guests by the ethnic minorities in Kiandongnan. Roland also came from books. I've learned about this aspect of knowledge. So he deliberately kept the whole cow's stomach, just for a suitable opportunity. Roland tasted the heated hodgepodge. The taste is self-evident. I don't know if you can eat it because of its appearance. Anyway, Roland's food was quite delicious. But after tasting this meal, he said there would be no second time. Under the erosion of loneliness and extreme cold, Roland's mood became a little down. However, at this moment, it was snowing and windy outside the house. Even breathing became extremely difficult. He has to endure the low temperature of -46 degrees to fetch water. Every step is as arduous as reaching the summit of a snow-capped mountain. During the coldest winter in the Arctic, this area receives an average of 7.5 inches of snowfall every day. The footprints just left will soon be covered. This made him just step onto the edge of the ice. The view ahead was plunged into a very terrifying total albinism. Visibility is less than 10 meters. Moreover, there were no reference points on the ice surface at all. 1 minute ago, the trees along the shore could still be faintly seen. In the blink of an eye, it was a vast expanse of white. During this milky white phenomenon, light scatters highly, resulting in the inability to see the horizon. Once a person gets nervous, they're very likely to lose their way. So at this very moment, Roland must give up the water collection plan. The heavy snow has not yet completely covered the footprints. One must rush back to the shelter immediately, after all the twists and turns. In the end, Roland was still fortunate enough to return to the shore. This heart-pounding experience made him express, "Next time, I definitely won't go out to fetch water in a snowstorm." On the 89th day, Roland was not informed of Kelly's withdrawal from the competition, so he must remain in a state of giving it his all. Hold on until the 100th day, in order to get myself some collagen. Roland was also torn for a long time among the 4 ox hoofs. Finally, the right front hoof was chosen. Tie the ox leg with a piece of iron wire, then throw it into the fire. Such a rough cooking method. It can retain to the greatest extent what the human body needs most, although there's still a lot of food for calcium. But every single piece of food, All of them are important factors influencing the progress of the competition, so they must be utilized to the maximum extent. After 20 minutes of wilderness barbecue, the hooves of the ox, giving off a burnt aroma, rushed towards me. But it tastes a bit strange. I don't know if it was not handled thoroughly enough. It's just that smell of earth mixed with licorice. Because the long night in the Arctic lasts for 18 hours, let Roland, who has always been in pursuit of freedom, stay in this cramped and small stone house for a long time. Gradually, I began to feel a bit irritable. He can only do daily tasks. One can't stop oneself. Otherwise, one will constantly miss their family in their mind. When participating in this competition, Roland is already 48 years old. That once unruly wild horse that was hard to tame. I have also begun to learn to consider my family's feelings more. Nowadays, he has achieved success late in life. I feel that I owe my family something, especially his mother, who has always deeply loved him, to participate in this challenge. Mother was also unable to see her for the last time before her death, and this became the greatest of his life, the most hard-to-let regret. Christmas Eve, in a situation of material abundance, but spiritual emptiness, he made a small slope with snow in front of the door, then insert a pine tree to serve as a Christmas tree. For Roland, this was the most meaningful Christmas for him. It is also the most memorable thing in my life. When the bell of the 100th day rang across the earth, Roland, in order to embrace this life, the most historic moment, as he carved the last line on the tree trunk, the mark representing the 100th day of one's arduous survival. Roland knows this solitary journey in the wilderness is finally coming to a successful conclusion, and I am that, the ultimate winner. He returned to the stone house, did nothing, just quietly waiting for the long-awaited celebration of the program team. The arrival of the helicopter this time. It's no longer the case of taking the losers home as usual. Instead, it welcomes the return of the victors. This moment, Roland finally witnessed his own moment of glory. There is no dispute over this victory. It was entirely earned through his tenacity and courage. It is well-deserved. May we all be like Roland, with courage and perseverance. Believe that you will eventually live the life you want to be. Come on, that's all for this episode. Welcome to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you for your patience in watching. Let's set off again next time.